You know, most people think that recovery is only about quitting a substance. But what if some people never recover because they never truly become someone new? I started using mood and mind altering substances when I was 12 years old, and without realizing it, I built my entire identity around substances. My friendships, my routines, the way I coped, even parts of my personality were shaped by the chaos. So when I finally got sober, here's what surprised me. It, Instead of feeling like I was finding myself, it felt like I was losing myself. And I was terrified. I was terrified. There's a massive difference between changing your behavior and changing your entire identity. Anyone can change a behavior temporarily, but lasting recovery requires an entire identity shift. You're not just quitting substances, you are grieving the person that you thought you were. And nobody really talks about that. When you start using substances so young, you don't even know who you actually are. And nobody really talks about that part. When you start using so young, you don't even know who you are without it. Your entire world is built around survival. So when recovery begins, it's going to feel extremely disorienting. There's a saying in recovery, you have to change everything but your name. It sounds cliche until you actually try and live it. New people, new environments, new boundaries, new coping skills, and eventually a new identity. The brain prefers familiar chaos over an unfamiliar freedom. And that's because at least the familiar version of you knows how to survive there. And I feel like that probably sounds so crazy to people who have never experienced addiction personally. I know that there's a lot of judgment in recovery spaces, and I feel like as time goes on, it's getting better, actually. At least from my experience, it's gotten better, and I pray that it continues to get better because, people's lives are at stake here. This isn't a game. It's not a joke. It's literally a life or death situation. And I just feel like there's no room for judgment when it comes to life and death. Stepping into a new life requires walking straight into the unknown, and that requires a ton of courage. And I just feel like there's no room for judgment when it comes to life and death. Stepping into a new life requires walking straight into the unknown, and that requires a ton of courage. I want to remind you of something today. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. That means that you were created with intricate detail and intention. This is not an accident or a coincidence. You're not here by accident or coincidence. You're created with design. That's not just a nice phrase. That means that you were created with intention, not by accident. You were created with design, not randomness. You were created with capacity, not limitation. Addiction may have shaped some of your story, but it never had permission to define your worth. Sometimes when I try to explain to people what it means to be fearfully and wonderfully made, it's really hard for me to explain it without becoming emotional because society tells us the opposite of that. And that's what I grew up believing my whole life. Society tells us the opposite of, we were designed with intention and not by accident. And man, dude, like when you grow up your whole life believing you're just here, and then you discover you're actually fearfully and wonderfully made, it kind of makes me angry. It makes me angry. And now I can't pretend like I don't know that. So when I see people who are depressed and who are going through struggles mentally, it just, it hurts my heart for them, because I know that they are fearfully and wonderfully made. I know that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And, you know, something that I set out to do with my show is convince people of that they are fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm trying to remove the veil. I'm trying to remove the veil that society has placed over everyone's face. You are always more than the worst thing that you've ever done. And I know how debilitating shame and guilt could be. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror when I first got sober, because I was riddled with shame and guilt. And shame and guilt never healed anybody. I'm not saying that, you know, you shouldn't feel bad about some of the bad things that you've done. That's a good sign, actually, because if you're feeling those feelings, then that means you're getting better. Because when you're on drugs, you don't feel any of that stuff. You're just numb. So feeling shame and guilt is a sign that you're healing, but what I'm trying to highlight is that it's not helpful to be consumed with it. Recovery is not about erasing your past. It's about building someone that your past no longer recognizes. So how do we actually begin to change our identity? I'm going to give you a couple of things that help me. Stop asking yourself, why am I quitting? Start asking yourself, who do I want to become? Because the questions you ask yourself determines the direction that you begin to walk. Next, this is one of my favorite parts. Next, begin to build evidence to support your new identity. I think that the way our brain, so I talk about confirmation bias all the time. Your brain is wired to continually search for evidence to support your beliefs. That's why it's so important how we talk to ourselves. It's more important what you say to yourself than anything anyone could ever say to you. So, you know, when we're stuck in shame and guilt, you don't speak to yourself very nicely. And I know that it's hard to say nice things to yourself about yourself when you don't believe them yourself. But you have to start somewhere. Start small. Positive affirmations is something that really helped me start to shed all the shame and the guilt. And like I said earlier, I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. But the research I did, I learned that, you know, we damage the neural pathways in our brain when we use it, but you can repair them. I created a routine for myself in early recovery that really helped me shed the shame and the guilt, and I was able to start looking at myself in the mirror. It takes 28 days to create a new habit. If you're right-handed, start your day with this every day. Just try it for 28 days. What do you have to lose? If you're stuck in shame and guilt, please try this 28-day routine. And if it, you know, at the end of the 28 days, if it hasn't helped you, what did you lose? You didn't lose anything. It's worth a shot. You know, I got to the point where I was willing to do anything to stay sober. I'm not gonna lie. When I first read this, I thought, oh, this sounds silly. There's no way that that's actually gonna help. But I like I said, I was at the point I was desperate, so I was willing to try anything. So for 28 days, start your day. If you're right-handed, brush your teeth with your left hand. After you brush your teeth, I want you to take 25 exaggerated breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth like this. Exaggerated breaths. After you do that, look at yourself in the mirror and say 10 nice things to yourself. It doesn't matter what it is. I love you. I am kind. I am thoughtful. Anything. Even if you don't believe it. For the first couple of weeks, I wasn't able to look at myself while I was saying these things, but by the middle mark of the month, I was able to start looking at myself again, and by the end of the month, I could actually look myself in the eyes in the mirror and say these nice things to myself. it changed everything for me. The Bible says, I've unlocked the keys to be content in every situation. That is your perspective. Your perspective, you quite literally have the ability to shape your reality. So, the evidence, start building the evidence. So, keep small promises. Start making small promises to yourself and keep them. Start with this routine that I'm telling you about. It's a really easy place to start. And if you have a hard time remembering things, and you start this routine and you realize, I skipped a day. It's okay. Start over. If you get to day 3 and you're like, oh man, I didn't do it on the 4th day, start back at day 1. It's only going to take a couple times of doing that to lock this routine in. Something else that really helps is writing. I think that writing things down is one of the most valuable tools you can have in or out of recovery. So back to this evidence. So keep small promises to yourself. Do what you said you were going to do. Show up even when it's inconvenient. Choose growth when it's uncomfortable. Confidence isn't something that you wait for. It's something that you have to build. One decision at a time. And listen, if early recovery feels confusing to you, if it feels like you don't recognize yourself, if some days it feels like you are floating between 2 different versions of yourself, you are not broken. You are literally rebuilding yourself. And rebuilding your life takes bravery. If you are serious about changing your life and you need somewhere to be vulnerable and completely honest, I created a recovery journal. Journaling is a safe place to organize your thoughts. Journaling helps with regulating your emotions. Journaling builds self-awareness, and self-awareness is where your identity begins to change. Not only is this a tool that helped me in early recovery and continues to help me, I'm almost 3 years sober, you guys. This is a habit that I built when I was in residential treatment, and it's something that I continue to do to this day. This is what my journal looks like. I'm so proud of this. This is something that I put my heart and my soul into. Everything in this journal are things that helped me not only in early recovery, but continue to help me to this day. I'm going to give you some statistics because everybody loves statistics, right? People who write their goals down are 42% more likely to achieve them. That's an incredible number. 70% of people who journal have found reduce in stress and anxiety. 20 to 23% of people have found improvements in memory recall. There's really no cons to journaling. One of the beautiful things that I get to do today, on Fridays, I get to go back to the residential treatment center that I got sober in, and I get to facilitate a meeting. One of the things that I get to do is when guys are just coming in there from the streets or from jail, a lot of them don't have stuff like hygiene products, clothes, and things to write with, recovery tools. So I have the privilege of helping these guys get some of the stuff they need. I do that with my own money. If you want to support what I'm doing, if you want to help me, grow my channel and also help these guys at the treatment center, this is one way that really helps the channel. If you're interested in this, the link is in the bio. And if you're interested in maybe donating some journals to some of these treatment centers and drug court programs, I would be honored to partner with you with that. Please reach out to thegandeeshow@gmail.com. Journaling builds self-awareness, and self-awareness is where you begin to see identity change. Now, I want to say this to our community. One of the most profound and powerful reminders that I can give you is you do not have to do this alone. You are not alone in this. That was one of the biggest misconceptions I had coming into this. And it's got a lot to do with, my late childhood and early adulthood, I had a lot of responsibilities on my shoulders. So I always was under the assumption that whatever it was, I had to figure it out on my own. It's not the case with sobriety and recovery. There are people out here that want to help us and they do not want anything in return. That's a huge deal. And I know for men, I'm going to speak to men for a second. I know for men, our egos get in the way of asking for help. I know that's a hard thing for us to do as men. But I'm telling you, humble yourself. Humble yourself. That's what we're doing here. That is like a main part of this whole process, is humbling yourself, because your ego is what's going to kill you. My ego almost killed me. If you have a recovery story or you're living one right now, I would love to hear from you. Please reach out to thegandeeshow@gmail.com. Send me your story. I want to share your story. You have no idea how our stories can help other people. Our words are powerful, and a lot of us are closed off to the idea of recovery until we hear somebody that basically tells our story. I've been in a meeting before to where, I was at a lead and the person up there talking, it was like I thought I was dreaming, or I thought it was me up there telling my story. I couldn't believe it. You would be surprised at just how many people can relate to your story. That could save somebody's life. You never know who your story might help or whose life you might save. The goal isn't just sobriety. The goal is transformation. And the person that you are becoming right now is somebody the old you desperately needed to exist. And ironically enough, there's a saying in recovery, you will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. Ironically enough, believe it or not, the person that you're becoming today needed the old you to exist, because without all these things that we've went through, you wouldn't be able to be where you're at today. I would not trade my life for anything in the world. And I know that if you're not there right now, I know that you can get there. I know that you can get there. It doesn't matter where you're at or what you've done. I thought my life was over. I relented. I accepted the thought that I was going to die addicted to drugs. I thought my life was over. If I can feel like this right now, I know that you can feel like this. I'm no different or smarter or stronger or faster than anybody watching this right now. Recovery isn't about quitting substances. It's about becoming somebody your addiction would never recognize. If this episode spoke to you, subscribe. It's free. I'm building something that's bigger than a YouTube channel here, and I would love for you to be a part of that. We are creating a space that people can come to rebuild their lives, and I'm so glad you're here. I'll see you in the next one. I'm out.